A lot of studios have a certain way of how they start franchises. Most studios have the same approach. A movie that is a huge hit and gets a positive reception is most likely to get a sequel and franchise, and they keep making more movies until their well is dry. DreamWorks, Illumination and Sony all had similar approaches when it comes to their film franchises, but Walt Disney is following that same strategy now. Before, they didn't do it that way. Usually when a film was successful and beloved, or even just well received enough, that film got a sequel, only they were direct-to-DVD instead of theatrical, and sometimes those sequels were actually just pilots for their spin-off TV shows, and surprisingly, a few movies that weren't huge hits did spawn a sequel. Films like Brother Bear, Pocahontas, and the most obscure of all, Atlantis: The Lost Empire, a film that is very different from the usual fairy tale film Disney is known for releasing. Disney had plans to turn Atlantis into a successful IP with its own sequel and TV show. However, things did not go according to plan. The film ended up disappointing at the box office and all plans for the series sank. So what happened to this intriguing new franchise? Well, let's talk about Atlantis, Disney's failed franchise. So the conception of the Atlantis franchise came from Gary Trustdale, Kirk Wise, Tab Murphy and Don Hahn, who following the success of The Hunchback of Notre Dame wanted to create a sci-fi action-adventure film in the same veins as Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The movie was a different swimming pool than what Disney made, breaking away from their traditional fairy tale musicals to focus on a more adult story. They also put in a lot of steampunk elements as well as go with a more unusual character design, taking inspiration from Mike Mignola and giving the characters unique shapes. Especially when it comes to their fingers, Disney put the film into production. In 2001, Atlantis: The Lost Empire was released, and was a colossal failure, making only over $100 million against a $120 million budget, and was torn apart by critics and audiences when it came out. It was also accused of being a rip-off of a popular anime series with a similar premise and set of characters called Nadia. While they initially planned to turn this into a franchise with a sequel and a TV show titled Team Atlantis, the movie's failure pretty much killed all those plans. You'd think we'd never see this IP again after such a huge failure, but surprisingly in 2003, Disney did in fact release a follow-up. Although it wasn't a traditional sequel, it was one of those three-story mashups, like Belle's Magical World, Tarzan and Jane, and Cinderella 2. In 2003, Atlantis: Milo's Return was released, and it was obliterated. People hated the laziness of the story and how it didn't have a consistent narrative, and that it was jumping from one genre to the next, with no real connection to each other other than Atlantean artifacts, as well as the animation being a complete downgrade from the first film, saying that it felt more like a TV show than an actual sequel movie, and thoughts because it was. You see, Disney had already commissioned their television animation department to start working on an Atlantis TV show, and they got 3 episodes in before the film came out. But since the show was cancelled after the film bombed at the box office, Disney didn't know what to do with the 3 episodes already produced, so they decided to just stitch them together and release it as a direct-to-DVD sequel. And if there was any hope of Atlantis becoming a franchise and starting a series, that hope was completely gone, as after that, nobody wanted anything to do with this IP. After that, the franchise was officially sunk. So what happened to Disney's Atlantis franchise? Why did it sink so fast? Well, a few reasons. The first movie was a bit of a jarring change for Disney, and not just the company, but for the audience as well. Disney has tried to break out of the traditional formula they popularized, with minimal success. When people think of Disney, they think very specific things: fairy tales, princesses and animals, all of which has proven successful time and time again. But action-adventure and sci-fi has never been one of their strongest aspects. They have never really had success with sci-fi or action-adventure. Star Wars is obviously an exception, but they don't make those movies. They just distribute them. All the films of those genres Disney actually has made has resulted in some of their biggest failures. Treasure Planet, Tron 1, 2 and 3, Tomorrowland, Meet the Robinsons and Strange World. People just can't buy Disney as a studio that can deliver sci-fi well, and the film just didn't appeal to anybody. The character design was weird, and the tone of the film just felt so bizarre compared to Disney's other works. It also had a lot of competition from Shrek and Fast and the Furious that same year, and that's another reason why Atlantis struggled so much. Around this time, Toy Story and Shrek had kickstarted a new style of animation in the industry with their new 3D CGI animation changing the landscape of the industry and was seen as a new cool thing that was worth more attention. Atlantis, being a 2D animated film, was seen as uninteresting and lackluster in comparison. 2D was already starting to lose popularity since the year prior. The Road to El Dorado and Disney's own film The Emperor's New Groove had flopped hard at the box office, and this was no different. People just weren't interested or impressed with 2D hand-drawn animation anymore. It was seen as a thing of the past. It wasn't impressive anymore to the public. People had moved on to the next big thing that was innovating the industry and left the old style to die and fade away. There's really no way to describe how Atlantis failed so hard other than bad circumstances, as well as releasing the film at a time when it had no chance of success. Disney put this movie out in a point in time when two other films had the public's attention, and they had no anticipation or excitement for another 2D film. They literally sent this film out to sink and drown in the franchise with it. There is no possible scenario where this film succeeds given the same things happen. It also didn't help that they lost any enthusiasm people might have still had for the IP when they released the mashup sequel instead of just including the 3 episodes as bonus features in the Atlantis DVD. This franchise was literally dead in the water when it arrived, and nobody wanted to see it. Nobody was there for it and nobody liked it, and so the franchise didn't go on. It ended on a sour note, and while the first movie has a cult following, the IP is still buried and forgotten. But I do think we will this franchise again. Shocking, I know. But hear me out. I've always said that out of all the Disney movies, this one has the most potential for a live-action remake. All the cool vehicles, the weapons, the atmosphere. This could make for a perfect awesome Disney live-action remake, and could even fix some things about the original that weren't well done there. This movie could be Disney's next big franchise if they do it right. If Disney can give Pete's Dragon a live-action remake, they should give this movie one. Come on, Disney. Give us fans a remake we actually want. This movie has everything you need to make a great live-action remake. Possibly the best one yet. Will it happen? Who knows? But for now, the franchise is sunk. Anyways guys, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.